Thank you, co-chairs, and thank you for once again resuming discussion of the clusters. I think very soon you would reach the stage where we would need to have a formulation on an update of the common elements paper with a description of convergences and divergences, and we look forward to that because that will also provide us the basis for the language that would be reflected in the Pact of the Future. So I think we will await that important exercise. Co-chairs, I believe there is a wide convergence on the need for improvement in the working methods of the Security Council, and the IGN process, as well as the process within the informal working group of the Council. I think efforts should continue on both tracks in order to enhance the work of the Security Council. The basic approach that we follow is one of democracy and accountability, transparency. Rule 48 of the provisional rules provides that unless it decides otherwise, the Security Council shall meet in public. Unfortunately, the practice is now the reverse, and I think it needs to be corrected. There also needs to be a more interactive format for open meetings where there is interaction between delegations rather than just prepared statements as such. There needs to be also inclusivity. And we just heard from a colleague from Japan who serves as the chair of the intergovernmental group and also the presidency of the council. And we were surprised yesterday when a debate was convened on nuclear disarmament or disarmament and arms control and nuclear disarmament, and was closed only to Security Council members. I think that's surprising. The issue of arms control and disarmament is an international issue of concern to the international community, not only to the Security Council. So this is not a good example of how transparency and democracy should be promoted in the Security Council's work. We have heard, co-chairs, from some of our colleagues here this morning of how the culture of the Council is slewed in favor of the P5. But yet, they also want to become like the P5. And it reminds one of that famous line from Shakespeare where we are told that Cassius has come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. But his intentions were revealed later. You have posed an important guiding question, co-chairs, which is the proportion of the votes required for adoption of a decision in an expanded Security Council. And I think yesterday our colleague from Italy provided the answer on behalf of the UFC, that is to, in a 27-member council, to have 16 or 17 as the affirmative votes. But I think that, as you probably have indicated, the number is more important than just the numerical strength of what will be required to improve the council. If the council has 22 non-permanent members, the majority of them from developing countries, And the affirmative votes required are 16, and I would say it should be 17. The developing countries represented on the Security Council will have the ability to block decisions of the Council and equalize, if not entirely, but to a considerable extent, equalize the power of the P5 or individual members of the P5. And therefore, if there was an unfortunate situation, as we are facing in the Council today, on two issues, the non-permanent members would have an equal ability to guide and influence the decisions of the Council. Therefore, that higher number is important. And it is important that we have non-permanent members present on the Council to utilize that collective effort. E10 should be strengthened before, even while we are working on the expansion of the Council. E10 was created by Pakistan and Germany in 2003 in the Security Council, and it has survived. It has done well sometimes, not so well other times, and it's an institution I think we need to strengthen. But coaches, what is required is a change in the culture of the Security Council. Transparency required, democracy required, inclusivity required. But there are specific things that need to be done in the Council, apart from the penholdership. Penholdership certainly is an institution which I was not familiar with the last time I was on the Council in 2003, 2004. It has emerged later in the Council, and I think it is something that has to be done away with. All members of the Security Council should be free to propose anything on any issue that is on the agenda of the Council. No one should have either monopoly or leadership on a particular issue and declare that we have the monopoly and leadership on that issue. It is restrictive and should be done away with. Similarly, on the chairmanships, it should be a democratic process in the Council. It is democratic process in the rest of the United Nations. Why is it not a democratic process in the Security Council? It is because we accept it. If the non-permanent members were to say to the P5, we do not accept that you dictate to us which committees we should be on and which committees, who will chair, that would be the end of it. But we have not resisted the non-permanent members. We accept it. It is up to us, therefore, to take the lead and say we do not accept it. And similarly, we accept that the Security Council transforms soft law or norms taken from various non-governmental processes and transforms them into binding international law through Chapter 7 resolutions. We accept it. The General Assembly has not protested that it is the remit of the General Assembly to adopt international law. It is not the remit of the Security Council, certainly not when there is no threat to international peace and security, no imminent threat to international peace and security. So we have to change that culture as well. We have to change the culture of setting up peacekeeping operations without consultation with the host country and without consultations with the troop contributing countries, and often without consultations with the rest of the membership as well. That is another area we have to. On terrorism, we have to have some oversight of the arbitrary way in which listings are made and unmade. It is a fact that on terrorism, there are various forms of terrorism. We all say there are various forms of terrorism. But in the Security Council, there is terrorist groups belong to only one religion. And we say terrorism should not be identified with any religion. But in practice, we have identified terrorism with one religion. While we talk about far-right terrorism, we talk about fascist terrorism, there is no listing. There is no process of sanctions against those terrorists, only against the terrorists belonging to one religion. That is another culture that we must change in the Security Council. And there is the issue of implementation. There are Security Council resolutions whose implementation we clamor for every day. We have a debate on Ukraine. We are preoccupied with Gaza. But there are other issues where Security Council resolutions have not been implemented for years and for decades often, and where people are suffering, where disputes exist which could erupt at any time in conflict. And yet, there is no mechanism in the Security Council to evaluate the status of implementation of its own resolutions. And this is one of the things that is required from the Security Council, and perhaps from the Secretariat which supports the Security Council, an annual report on the status of implementation of Security Council resolutions. So these are some of the things, co-chairs, that we need to do in order to change the culture of the Security Council beyond just process and procedure, to change the culture of the Security Council, because that is what we want, a more democratic, accountable, efficient Security Council, and we can achieve that. Finally, let me just say that we keep hearing a criticism of this IGN process repeatedly. But my question to those who are so critical and impatient for the IGN to produce the results that they want, I would ask them, what is the alternative? The alternative is a confrontation. And are they ready for that confrontation and the consequences of that confrontation? They should ponder that very, very carefully. We will have text-based negotiations when we are ready, when the convergences are sufficient to enable those text-based negotiations. We cannot have a timeline on a process that is as sensitive and as important for the national interests of each one of our countries, that somebody dictates to us by tomorrow, by the 78th, 9th session, by the 80th session, we must have a decision. It will be a fruitless exercise, a fruitless and dangerous timeline, because it will end up in a confrontation. I think we have to go through the process we are going through. We have to build the convergences and then come to the conclusions that we can achieve. This is a political process. It is not an automatic tick-tock. Thank you.